Hello, I'm Silvia Vitiello. I'm a partner with Kingston Smith Accountants and Business Advisors. This video is just one tool in our series to help businesses improve and perhaps to inspire you with some ideas. This presentation is around SWOT analysis. Now, SWOT has been around for a long time and you've probably used it, but quite often we found that people are not using it to its greatest effect. So I'm just going to revisit it one more time. I've used this myself with a lot of clients and it's been really good when we've done it right. So SWOT stands for obviously strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and you start out with a diagram like this and you bring your team together and you start to brainstorm what your strengths are, your weaknesses and so on. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to assume that we have one idea for each of these areas. So let's say in strengths, when we brainstorm, we think our people. They're actually a real strength of ours. They're well trained, they've been with us, they are committed. A weakness for this particular organisation, let's say, is cash flow. We struggle with cash flow, really, the management of it, the generation of cash. Opportunities, well, let's say something around global growth. There's a big opportunity there for us to take our product or our service out globally. And our threats, well, that might be because we have a strong leader, perhaps. Let's say the loss of that leader. So it's a threat, a potential threat. Now, in a real life situation, you're probably going to have 3, 4, 5, 6 things in each of these categories. But let's just stick with these and work through each of the boxes. And this is how you do it in a real life situation. It takes time, but it really will get to the nub of the idea. So how can we leverage our strengths to make the most out of our opportunities that we've identified? So here we've got people. Let's come up with a couple of ideas. Let's say the group brainstorm and they say, well, we've got some really good people. So X is really a top salesperson. Why don't we get X to write us our sales manual? Because we need one of those, and if we get one of those done properly by a real sort of person who understands what's going on in the business, we can get everybody to uplift their game to that. And we also have Y, let's say that's another person, and they're really good. They understand the business and they understand sort of the global area. Let's get them to head up, I don't know, our US sales. Let's put them down as an idea for that. Quickly moving on, let's say weaknesses, our cash flow. We're always running out of cash flow. What can we do? How can we help gain the opportunities that we have, but actually mitigate some of those weaknesses? Well, if we really do think that global growth is a real opportunity for us, but we have very little cash, let's think about maybe a loan. Could we look at bringing some money in that way? Or maybe we could look at how we deliver our product. So if you were, I don't know, service industry or providing some training or something like that, you might look at digitising. It's something that you can do globally, but without a huge input of funds, perhaps. You'll have lots of ideas in this. Moving on, how can we use our strengths to mitigate the threats that we've identified? Here, it's around that loss of the leader. Well, I think probably a really obvious one here that most people would come up with is, well, you should really have a succession plan in place. You said you got some good people, but why don't you start sort of strategizing for that? The alternative to that is maybe look at merger. Again, lots of other ideas could go in here. And finally, this rather dangerous box over here, you've got a weakness in cash flow, but you have a threat from that loss of the leader. What could we think about with that in terms of doing that? Well, maybe we could raise some equity. It might be that the outgoing leader would be happy for us to do that. I don't know, thinking around that. And the alternative, and I'm going to put it in a second time here, is perhaps a merger. That might give us an opportunity to mitigate some of the problems of the cash flow. Now again, in a real life example, you're going to have lots more ideas at each of these sides and lots of alternatives within here. Once you've actually got that captured, it's about identifying the top 3 things. Be really clear on this. You don't want to pick too many to address because otherwise it becomes something that's unwieldy. So let's say the top things, and by top again, the things that are going to give you the best effect for the least amount of effort. And sometimes timing is important there. What about looking at the sales manual? So we might say, well, actually, getting that sales manual would be really great because then we take the information that X has in his head and spread it out across the whole of the organisation. And maybe we ought to be looking at the succession plan because that's something we ought to be doing and we need time to consider that. So let's pop that in there. And again, maybe this one here might be something that we're looking at. We could develop our product or our service and we could have it. So from actually taking a very critical analytical view at your SWOT analysis, you're able to identify the top 3 criteria, the top 3 things that you're going to focus your efforts on. Again, really strong tool that you can use in your business, and it's something that can work brilliantly. Again, you've captured all this information. Remember, you can come back and address these at a later date. This has been a real whistle-stop tour through a very important tool. So if you'd like to hear more or see some more of the tools that we're bringing to businesses, then please come to our website and have a look. And of course, you can always contact me directly.